Hello world, my name is Michael and welcome to part 2 of our Teapot Tech Talk on Vite. Last time we created our simple application, we created a simple component, added a linter, added Storybook and tracked everything across version control. But unfortunately we didn't cut as deep as we wanted to. It was about a scratch. So today we're going to pick up exactly where we left off after having initialized Storybook. Let's get on with it. So when you initialize Storybook, it gives you some simple stories to work with, like a button, secondary button, a header, a page. We don't want any of that. That's not relevant to us. So we're gonna just kill this and then come back to our IDE, check out stories, and nuke that entire folder. We don't want any of that. But we do want a story for key. So we create a new file. We're going to call it key.stories.jsx. Yes, we want to add it. And we're going to call it, I don't know, just paste everything in here. These are our stories. And what they do is they just take the different variants of our key. So now, if we restart our story book, we have our key where we have our default 0. Well, that's not the best use of the word 0. Let's just say 6 instead. There we go. 0. And then maybe a function key, AC. An operator key, it's bright here orange, plus, and 0 is slightly longer, and a pointer is like this. There we have it. We now have Storybook installed. This looks like a good place to save everything. So let's do that again. Always commit. Version control is important, people. Add Storybook. There we have it. So what's next on our agenda? Well, I'm a fan of testing. Why? Because testing is awesome. You really want to always be testing your stuff. If you're not testing your stuff, you need to start testing your stuff. So let's see if we can add testing. Now, before we start playing around with testing, there's something I have to mention because this is very important. Testing in Vite is not as straightforward as just installing Jest, because Jest, if we go to Jest, it'll tell you Jest doesn't work with Vite. That's like a very big negative for me. Just stock just doesn't work properly with Vite. But Vite has its own testing library or plugin that's almost compatible with Jest. It's like built on Jest and it's called Vite.test. Let's see if we can find it up here. Vite.test. A blazing fast framework powered by Vite. I am not a fan that we need a native test framework that basically does what Jest is. I mean, seriously, it's Jest compatible? If it's Jest compatible, why aren't we using Jest? But it is what it is. This is like a negative point for me, but it might not be a deal breaker for you. So let's see if we can add Vite test and get our tests running. So first thing we have to do is actually add to the dev environment Vite test. So we just cleared that thing out. We added Vite test, which is great. Here it is. Where are we? Vite test. And now we're going to start configuring it. So what you need to know about Vite test is that you need to have, for example, the command here. Now, before we run our test script, there are a couple of things we need to set up for Vite test to work perfectly. So the first thing is we're going to need to create a test utils file. Let's do that. So test utils. What test utils does is basically like simplifies how we're going to do things. We've got our cleanup after every test. We've got our custom renderer set up, and then we export everything. So we're going to be getting everything from test utils. Now, there's one other thing we need to do, which is a setup file in test. Let's do that right now. So setup.js is just basically just importing just DOM or JS DOM. So since we're importing it, we're going to need to update our dependencies accordingly. Let's do that. Now, there's something else we're going to need to add. Aside from just JS DOM, we're going to need testing library. Why? Because we're testing React. Let's do that first. So we have all of our dependencies met. We have our setup, we have our utils, and we just need to update our Vite config just a little bit to work with our new testing thing. So let's do that. The config. Great. Now that we've done all of the initial setup for testing, we need a test. So let's create a test for our key component. We're gonna call it key.test.js. There we go. And the code for this particular test is going to be pretty simple. One checks if it renders, one checks if the function we're providing is called, and the other one just says, are my kids home yet? So now that we've done that, let's see if it tests. Oh, wow, we've tested, but it failed. Let's check what is wrong here. Okay. Ah, right. This is a simple problem. It comes from I have a very bad habit of always wanting to name my files .js, which I've learned for the last 10 years, but sometimes we need JSX, especially if we're using things with React in them. Use JSX. It'll make your life easier. So let's rename this .jsx. Boom! We have a passing test. So yes, Vite test is compatible with Jest, but there are some things like caveats you have to be aware of. For example, it uses VI instead of Jest. I mean, you can get around that by renaming the imports, but that's something that's like a deal breaker for me. But anyway, we finished our setup. We've got a test, we've got linting, we've got Storybook. So the only thing that's left is to finish the rest of the calculator. And we're not going to do that on video. Instead, we're just going to do it through the miracle of editing. And we're back. Through the miracle of editing, we now have the rest of our calculator. We updated our test. This is just a linting issue. And we've got our calculator module. We've got stories for the calculator module. We've got our display module, etc., etc. And the output of our work, our labor of love, is this nifty little calculator with this unique color scheme. Unique in quotes, because it's not unique at all. Here we go. Can test it out. 1 plus 1 goes to 3. Oh, wow. I didn't think 1 plus 1 goes to 2, but anyway, let's say plus 3 times 9 times 8, I guess, and everything. So it's a simple application. Feel free to take a look at it. Feel free to take a look at Vite itself. I recommend, if you really want to do it, to actually take a look at Vite. Make a sample project, see if it will fit your needs. It's a good framework. It doesn't currently fit my current needs, so I probably will not be using it that much, but I'm glad I did take a look at it because it's a bit of an eye-opener, and that's it. We really need to open our eyes to different experiences. So, thanks for coming to my Tech Talk. Happy coding.